And so what does Friedman come along and say? Two things as reference to today and what I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. First of all, he says that a country that puts equality before freedom ends up with substantially less of both. A country that puts equality before freedom ends up with less of both. And the other thing that Friedman says is one of the most fundamental threats to democracy is inflation. Inflation, inflation. That's why he's so concerned with controlling the growth of the money supply. So what I want to do is I want to focus my attention on the Obama administration. I'm going to talk about this crowd. In many ways, I'm glad a person of color has been elected President of the United States. I don't like racism. I think it's insidious. And so maybe that element alone would help reduce some of the racist pressures in this country. But at the same time, I don't care as an economist what color you are. I don't care if you're tall or short. I don't care if you're male or female. I don't care if you're gay or straight. It makes no difference to me. Can you think? Do you have good economics? So here comes Obama. First of all, going through the Chicago political system. I grew up in Chicago. I know what the Chicago political system is like. It's nasty. You don't come through that thing as a babe in the woods. You come through that system bare knuckles. You're tough as nails. So, you know, you come through, you cut deals behind closed doors. It's a tough environment. And he says, well, I want change. I want change. So let's just consider what the Obama administration is doing. I'll just pick some examples. First of all, you have a compensation czar. That is stunning to me. What do we learn in basic economics? Wage and price controls are highly detrimental to the economy, and yet here comes a wage control. Now, supposedly it's with good hearts. Oh, we don't want these people making a lot of money. Well, the fundamental reason they made a lot of money was poor government regulation. Of course they're greedy. Everybody is greedy. That's a given. So it's up to the government to regulate. That's what Adam Smith says in The Invisible Hand, that you need the proper institutions to channel greed into social welfare. And yet here's the Obama administration just screwing up the financial system enormously and then turning around and blaming these people, and so they're going to have a compensation czar. Stunning. The next thing that the Obama administration does is they're going to bail out Chrysler, and who do they screw to the wall? The bondholders. They bend over backwards for the unions, but the people that invested in this, too bad, you don't get your money. The next thing the Obama administration does is here they come with the stimulus plan. Who's one of the major critics of that stimulus plan? Senator Kyle from Arizona. And so cabinet members of the Obama administration sent letters to Governor, I'm going blank here, Jan Brewer, sent letters saying that if you don't get your act together, we won't give you the stimulus money. Just beyond comprehension. Lamar Alexander, Senator, has written the Obama administration saying, hey, we don't want an enemies list like under Nixon, and yet here they are, lining up enemies. They're going after the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And so when I look at the Obama administration, one of the things that strikes me about Obama is he's a wonderful speaker. Oh my gosh, is he a great speaker. But, as we all know, words can be dangerous. Actions speak louder than words. And so when I look at the Obama administration, I just try to look at it from a fact point of view. What I see is suppression of liberty. Not expansion of liberty, but suppression of liberty. And I have to tell you, I'm scared. I was a college student when Nixon was president. I saw what Nixon did. I think the Obama administration is doing more to destroy liberty than any presidential administration since Nixon. So I have to tell you, as a free market economist right now, I'm scared to death. If somehow they get the health plan through as planned, that's going to be, it's going to be just devastating for the U.S. economy. We're already running huge deficits. This week in the Wall Street Journal, one of the very fine economists in this country, Allan Meltzer, Carnegie Mellon, said, we better do something right now before this financial crisis becomes an outright mess. They've turned on the printing presses, so here comes the inflation that Friedman is worrying about. They're running huge deficits, which means your generation is going to be paying taxes until the very day you die. They're capping and trading. They're intervening in the government. The government's intervening in the economy in the name of goodness. That is frightening to a free market economist. So I have to tell you, I'm scared to death. And if it gets much worse, I have my game plan. I'm moving to New Zealand. I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Our second speaker is going to be Dr. Byron Schlomach. Dr. Schlomach is an economist and works for the Goldwater Institute as the director of the Center for Economic Prosperity. He has researched and written on tax and spending policies and has studied transportation, healthcare, and education policies. Dr. Schlomach?
Thanks. Well, talk is along a similar line. I'm not going to just talk about the Obama administration, but kind of set it, maybe look at it at a little more than a 10,000-foot level. Got this great quote I carry around with me. Some of you might have seen me pulling stuff out of my wallet. Not money. There's this great quote from C.S. Lewis that I think perfectly characterizes the Obama administration and much of what we have to deal with from government these days. It says, "Of all tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. It would be better to live under robber barons than under omnipotent moral busybodies. The robber baron's cruelty may sometimes sleep, his cupidity may at some point be satiated, but those who torment us for our own good will torment us without end, for they do so with the approval of their own conscience." In reality, I would argue that the Obama administration, the thing that frightens me about so many of these people is they don't actually have a conscience. You know, economic liberty and political liberty are intimately intertwined. One of the arguments the great Milton Friedman made in his Free to Choose book and in the films, if you've ever seen those videos, is that economic liberty and political liberty are related. You don't tend to have one without the other. If you look at China today, as they've opened up economically, there has increasingly been agitation toward political liberty. Now, they've suppressed it to some extent, and they'll succeed with that for a while. But eventually, people get restless, and people who are economically powerful get restless, and they demand more freedom. And with their economic power, they can succeed in demanding that political freedom. We tend to look at economic freedom as something that's completely unrelated to the political freedoms like freedom of speech. But the reality is that if you look at World War I or World War II, when the economy was substantially controlled by the government, in order to keep the peace, the government to a great extent did suppress liberties like freedom of speech. Now, when I look at today's situation, I look at the Obama administration, we talk as if, well, if they get health care passed, there are going to be all these bad economic consequences in the future, and all that is true. But we need to understand that the very discussion of health care today, as it's framed, is hurting us economically right now. If you own a business, are you going to hire people if all they are is a tax liability in the healthcare system in the future? Or if you think there's a possibility that they'll become a liability for you in the future, are you going to hire them now? No. This entire discussion has created greater uncertainty, and it's delaying any economic recovery that we might be able to have, or at least the strength of any economic recovery that might be going on right now.